Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're setting off on a journey that's both physical and spiritual, the Camino de Santiago.
Ooh, I like that. Physical and spiritual.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, this Camino. We're going to be exploring why people trek across Spain,
Yeah.
sometimes for hundreds of miles to visit the tomb of St. James.
Yeah. It's an intriguing question, isn't it? And this route has been attracting pilgrims for over 1,000 years. I mean, that's just wild to think about. To really understand why, I think, we have to start with the man himself, St. James the Greater.
All right, so set the scene for us. Who was this James, and why was he so important to inspire such a devoted following?
Well, he was one of Jesus' original 12 apostles,
Yeah,
a fisherman by trade, but he wasn't just any apostle.
right.
He was one of the sons of thunder,
Oh,
alongside his brother John.
I see.
This nickname suggests a passionate, fiery personality, someone who wasn't afraid to speak his mind.
Son of Thunder. That's quite a nickname. You have to wonder what earned him that label. Was it just a personality quirk, or
Mm-hmm.
was there something more to it? Do we have any clues about that?
I think it speaks to the zeal with which he embraced his faith.
Mm.
Remember, he was present at some pivotal moments in Jesus' ministry. The transfiguration where Jesus revealed his divine nature
Yeah.
and the raising of Jairus' daughter from the dead. These weren't just miracles.
Right.
They were profound displays of power that likely left a deep impression on James.
It makes you wonder, did witnessing those events fuel the thunder within him?
Yeah.
Did it? Did they shape his commitment to spreading Christianity after Jesus' death?
Absolutely. Tradition has it that James traveled extensively preaching the gospel in Spain,
Uh-huh.
but then, of course, he was executed in Jerusalem
Oh?
by King Herod Agrippa.
So how does a man executed in Jerusalem end up with a tomb in Spain? That's quite the geographical leap.
It is. That's where the legend takes over.
Sure.
The story goes that after his death, James's disciples placed his body in a stone boat, rudderless,
Wow.
and entrusted it to the sea. Guided by angels, the boat miraculously sailed to the shores of Galicia in northwestern Spain.
A boat guided by angels.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful image.
Mhm.
But wouldn't a rudderless boat be more likely to end up dashed against the rocks?
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
Why would people believe this legend?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, it's a great story, but
It is.
was there any other kind of
Well,
corroborating?
yeah. It's important to remember that in the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
people viewed the world through a very different lens.
Yeah.
Miracles were not just possible, they were expected. The legend of James's arrival in Spain served to legitimize his presence there and reinforce the idea that this land was sacred, chosen by God.
Okay, so even if the boat story is more symbolic than literal,
Right.
it still played a crucial role in establishing
Yes.
the sanctity of this location.
Yes.
But then his tomb was lost for centuries.
Right. It was. For over 800 years. Imagine that. This crucial figure in early Christianity, and his final resting place was just shrouded in mystery. It wasn't until the 9th century that a shepherd named Pelayo
Right.
rediscovered the tomb.
Okay, I've got to ask, how does a shepherd just stumble upon a lost tomb after 8 centuries? Was he looking for it, or just happened to?
It's a good question. The legend says that Pelayo was guided by a field of stars, a celestial beacon pointing him towards the forgotten burial site.
Oh, wow.
This field of stars became known as Compostela, eventually giving its name to the city that grew around the tomb, Santiago de Compostela.
So from a field of stars to a major pilgrimage destination, that's quite a transformation.
It is.
But I imagine there's more to it than just a shepherd
Yeah.
and some twinkling stars.
Yeah. You're right. What made this discovery so significant,
Right.
especially in that historical context? What was going on?
The timing was crucial. This was during the Reconquista, the long struggle to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from the Moors.
The rediscovery of St. James's tomb provided a powerful symbol of Christian resistance and a rallying point for the faithful.
So it wasn't just a religious discovery, it was a political one as well.
Yes.
And King Alfonso II of Asturias, he was quick to capitalize on this, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Having a major pilgrimage site within his kingdom was a huge power play, a rival to Rome and Jerusalem.
Wow.
Right there on the Iberian Peninsula, Alfonso II recognized the strategic value of attracting pilgrims from across Europe.
Yeah. Pilgrims meant not only spiritual devotion, but also economic activity
Right.
and the potential for increased influence and power.
Uh-huh.
So the stage was set for the birth of the Camino de Santiago.
Exactly. People started making their way to Santiago, drawn by the legend of St. James and the promise of spiritual rewards. The earliest routes, like the Camino Primitivo and the Camino del Norte, they followed established Roman roads, offering some degree of safety in those turbulent times.
So these early pilgrims, they were venturing into unfamiliar territory, often facing danger and hardship along the way. What kind of people would undertake such a perilous journey?
All walks of life. You had devout Christians seeking penance, spiritual enlightenment, adventurers looking for a challenge, even those seeking to escape justice or avoid obligations back home.
It's fascinating to think about the diverse motivations that brought people together on this path. But as the Camino grew in popularity, it needed more structure, didn't it? It couldn't just be this kind of free-for-all.
You're absolutely right. That's where figures like King Sancho the Great and Alfonso VI come into play. They saw the potential of the Camino not just as a pilgrimage route, but as a way to unite and develop their kingdoms.
So they began to invest in the infrastructure of the Camino.
Exactly. They commissioned the construction of bridges, hospitals,
Wow.
and monasteries along the route, particularly along the Camino Francis,
Well,
which became the most popular path to Santiago.
so by making the journey safer and more accessible, they encouraged even more pilgrims to come to Santiago. It was a brilliant strategy, really.
It was?
But what about guidance? How did people know which way to go in those early days?
Right.
Did they just follow the stars like Balayo? Was it all word of mouth? Or
I mean, there were established routes. Word of mouth certainly played a role.
Yeah.
But by the 12th century, we have the emergence of something truly remarkable, the Codex Calixtinus.
And this was essentially the first Camino guidebook, right?
Yes, it was.
What kind of information did it contain?
Oh, it was an incredible resource for pilgrims. It included detailed descriptions of the route, practical advice on what to pack, where to find food and lodging, even warnings about potential dangers.
Wow.
And it also featured prayers, hymns, stories about St. James and other saints associated with the Camino.
It's amazing to think of those medieval pilgrims relying on this guidebook,
Yeah.
navigating their way through unfamiliar landscapes, relying on the kindness of strangers.
It really highlights the sense of community that developed around the Camino. People weren't just walking alone, they were part of a larger network, a fellowship of pilgrims supporting and encouraging each other along the way.
And all these different paths, all these individual journeys,
Yeah.
converging on this one destination, Santiago de Compostela, and the grand cathedral that houses the tomb of St. James. It must have been an overwhelming experience to finally reach that goal.
Absolutely. You can imagine the sense of accomplishment, the spiritual fulfillment. But it wasn't just about reaching the destination, it was about the transformation that took place along the way.
The physical journey mirroring a spiritual one.
Exactly. The challenges, the hardships, the moments of doubt and despair, all contributing to a process of self-discovery and spiritual growth. It's no wonder that the Camino continued to draw pilgrims even after the initial fervor of the Reconquista faded.
But surely the motivations for undertaking this arduous journey must have evolved over time, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely.
What started as a primarily religious pilgrimage has transformed into something much more complex, hasn't it?
You're absolutely right. While the religious aspect remains a central draw for many, the Camino today attracts people from all walks of life with a wide range of motivations.
So let's delve into those motivations a little deeper.
Okay.
What compels people to walk the Camino today? What do they hope to find along the way?
Ooh, that's a fascinating question, and one that we'll explore in more detail in just a moment. Stay with us.
So we've been talking about, kind of the history of the Camino,
Hmm.
but I'm really curious about what draws people to it today. It seems like such a commitment, walking hundreds of miles, sometimes for weeks or even months.
You're right. It's not a decision people make lightly,
Okay.
but the motivations are as diverse as the pilgrims themselves. For some, it's still very much a religious pilgrimage, a chance to deepen their faith or fulfill a spiritual vow.
So for them, reaching Santiago and touching the tomb of St. James, that's the ultimate goal.
Exactly. But for others, the Camino is more about the journey itself than the destination. It's a chance to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of modern life, to slow down and reconnect with nature and with themselves.
We live in a world of constant stimulation, always connected, always on the go. I can see how the simplicity of walking, putting one foot in front of the other day after day, that could be incredibly appealing.
It's a form of moving meditation, a way to quiet the mind and be fully present in the moment. And of course, there's the physical challenge. For some, the Camino is a test of endurance, a chance to push their limits and prove something to themselves.
I imagine it takes a lot of grit and determination to keep going, especially when you're tired, sore,
Yeah,
and maybe even questioning why you started in the first place.
absolutely. But those moments of challenge are often where the greatest growth occurs. You learn a lot about yourself when you're pushed outside of your comfort zone.
And you're not alone in those challenges, right?
Right.
You're surrounded by other pilgrims, people who are going through those same struggles. I imagine that shared experience creates a powerful sense of camaraderie.
It does. That's one of the most remarkable things about the Camino, the sense of community. People from all over the world, from different backgrounds, different ages, different beliefs, all coming together on this journey.
Strangers become friends, sharing stories, meals,
Yeah.
blisters along the way.
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of humanity, all walking in the same direction, united by this shared experience.
And those bonds often extend beyond the Camino itself. People stay in touch, they form lasting friendships. It's a reminder that we're all connected, even in a world that can often feel divided.
So it's not just a journey across Spain, it's a journey inward, a
Yes.
journey of self-discovery,
Yes.
and a journey that connects you with others in a very profound way.
Precisely. And then, of course, there are those who walk the Camino for a combination of reasons: spiritual, personal, physical. It's a multifaceted experience, and what each individual takes away from it is unique.
You mentioned earlier that the Camino was also used as a form of punishment in the Middle Ages.
Yes.
It's a pretty stark contrast to the motivations we're discussing
Right.
today.
It is, isn't it? In medieval times, the church had a lot of power,
Right.
and the Camino was sometimes imposed as a penance for sins committed. Imagine that walking hundreds of miles as a form of atonement.
It makes you appreciate how the Camino has evolved over time.
It has.
It's no longer solely dictated by religious doctrine. It's become a much more personal and individualized experience.
Yeah.
And that evolution is reflected in the numbers, right? After a period of decline in the late Middle Ages and Renaissance, the Camino experienced a resurgence in popularity in the 20th century.
Yes, it did.
What sparked that revival?
Well, there were a few key factors. One was the work of individuals like Father Elias Foligna,
Okay.
a parish priest in Osabrero. He recognized the historical and cultural significance of the Camino and tirelessly promoted its restoration and preservation.
So he was like a modern-day apostle,
Yeah.
spreading the word about the Camino and encouraging people to rediscover its power.
In a way, yes. He literally walked the path, marking the route, creating guidebooks, and inspiring others to follow in his footsteps.
And his efforts paid off. Because in 1993, the Camino Francis was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? Bringing international attention and further fueling its revival.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the power of popular culture. Books, movies, documentaries about the Camino have introduced it to a wider audience, inspiring even more people to embark on this ancient pilgrimage.
It's amazing how a journey that began over 1,000 years ago continues to resonate so strongly with people today. It's a testament to the enduring human need for connection, for meaning, for something that transcends the everyday.
It truly is. And while the motivations may have evolved over time, the essence of the Camino remains the same: a journey of self-discovery, a chance to connect with history and nature, and an opportunity to be part of something larger than yourself.
So whether you're seeking spiritual enlightenment, a physical challenge, or simply a chance to escape the ordinary and reconnect with yourself, the Camino de Santiago has something to offer. It's a journey that can transform you in ways you never imagined.
And that transformative power is reflected in the very architecture of the Santiago Cathedral, the final destination for pilgrims. It's not just a building. It's a living, breathing testament to the Camino and its evolution.
You know, I've always been fascinated by the idea that architecture can tell a story. What story does the Santiago Cathedral tell?
It tells the story of faith, of devotion, of human endeavor, and of the enduring legacy of St. James. Each facade, each tower, each detail adds to the rich tapestry of this sacred space.
For example, the Portico de Gloria, that magnificent Romanesque entrance. It's not just a doorway. It's a visual representation of the pilgrim's journey and the glory that awaits them in the afterlife, isn't it?
Exactly. And the facade of the Obrador, the main facade facing the Plaza de Obradoiro, is a masterpiece of Baroque architecture. It features a stunning interplay of light and shadow with intricate carvings depicting scenes from the life of St. James. It's as if the cathedral itself is welcoming the pilgrims, celebrating their arrival.
And the Plaza de Obradoiro itself is an architectural marvel. It's like a giant open-air stage for the cathedral, framing it perfectly. I read that even the name Obradoro is a nod to the workshops that once surrounded the cathedral, where stonemasons labored on its construction.
It's as if the very square itself is a testament to the human effort and artistry that went into creating this sacred space.
And each side of the cathedral has its own unique character and story. The south facade, the Das Praterias, is the only Romanesque facade that's been preserved, offering a glimpse into the cathedral's earlier architectural style.
And the north facade, the Da Asabeteria, while rebuilt in the 18th century after a fire, still retains some Baroque elements. It's a reminder that the cathedral has been constantly evolving, adapting to the changing times while still preserving its essence.
And let's not forget the towers.
Oh, the towers.
The bell towers, the Torre das Campas and Torre da Caracas, soar above the city, their bells calling pilgrims to prayer and marking the passage of time.
And the clock tower, the Torre de Trindade, or Berenguela, stands at the intersection of the Praterias and Quintana squares, its lanterns serving as a beacon for pilgrims during holy years. It's as if the cathedral itself is reaching towards the heavens, a symbol of the pilgrims' spiritual aspirations.
It's amazing how every element of the cathedral, from the grandest facade to the smallest detail, contributes to its overall narrative.
Yes.
Its story of faith, devotion, and human endeavor. It's a symphony of architecture and spirituality, a testament to the enduring power of the Camino de Santiago.
And speaking of power, you can't talk about the cathedral without mentioning the Botafumeiro.
The Botafumeiro, that
Yeah.
gigantic censer that swings across the transept.
Yes.
I've heard stories about it, but I can't even imagine what it must be like to witness it in person.
It's truly an awe-inspiring spectacle. The Botafumeiro is filled with charcoal and incense, and as it swings through the air, it releases these thick clouds of fragrant smoke, filling the cathedral with this intoxicating aroma. It's a multi-sensory experience, a visual and olfactory feast.
I've heard it can reach speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour?
It can.
That must be quite a sight to behold.
It is. 8 red-robed seraboleros pull the ropes, sending this enormous censer soaring through the air. It's a carefully choreographed ritual, a blend of religious symbolism and sheer physical spectacle.
And it's said that the swinging motion of the Botafumeiro, it symbolizes the pilgrim's journey.
Oh, yes.
The ups and downs, the twists and turns of the path.
The challenges.
It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
It is, and it's just one of the many layers of meaning and symbolism that are woven into the fabric of the cathedral and the Camino itself.
We've covered so much ground today. From the origins of the Camino to the motivations of modern-day pilgrims and the architectural splendor of the Santiago Cathedral, it's been an incredible journey of discovery.
It has. And before we conclude, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought to ponder. If you were to embark on your own Camino, what would you hope to discover along the way?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. Would it be a spiritual awakening, a physical challenge, a chance to connect with history and culture, or perhaps something entirely different? The beauty of the Camino is that it means something different to everyone who walks it. There are no right or wrong answers.
Exactly. The Camino is a personal journey of discovery, and that's what makes it so timeless and universal.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our Camino today, at least for this deep dive.
Yes.
But I have a feeling this conversation has sparked something in our listeners, a desire to learn more, perhaps even to experience the Camino for themselves.
I hope so. And for those who are curious, there's a wealth of resources available. Books, documentaries, websites, and who knows, maybe one day our paths will cross on the Camino itself.
Until then, buen camino to you all.
Buen Camino.
It really is incredible to think that people have been walking this path for centuries, each with their own story and purpose.
And it's not just the individual journeys that are fascinating. It's how the Camino itself has been shaped by those who walked it. I mean, think about those medieval pilgrims. They weren't just travelers, they were nation builders.
You mean how they contributed to the development of towns?
Yeah.
And infrastructure along the route.
Exactly. Those monasteries, hospitals, bridges, they weren't just for the pilgrims' benefit. They helped to connect isolated communities, stimulate economic activity. The Camino wasn't just a spiritual path, it was a lifeline, a cultural artery pumping life into the regions it traversed.
It's like this tangible manifestation of faith in action, a testament to the power of collective effort. And yet, for all its grandeur, the Camino also has this element of simplicity to it, doesn't it?
It does. Ultimately, it boils down to the basic act of walking, putting one foot in front of the other, day after day, stripping away the complexities of modern life, reconnecting with something fundamental within ourselves.
There's something almost primal about that, isn't there? Like tapping into an ancient rhythm. That's been a part of the human experience for millennia. No wonder it continues to resonate with people in such a profound way.
And that's what makes the Camino so timeless and universal. It's a journey that transcends cultures, beliefs, even time itself. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful journeys are the ones we take on foot, step by step, one day at a time.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our own Camino today, at least for this deep dive.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling this conversation has sparked something in our listeners, a desire to learn more, perhaps even to experience the Camino for themselves.
I hope so. And for those who are curious, there's a wealth of resources available: books, documentaries, websites. And who knows, maybe one day our paths will cross on the Camino itself.
Until then, buen Camino to you all.
Buen Camino.